be without fear.
Welcome to the Ariane Tavakol podcast, and my name is Ariane, and I will be your host tonight. And I'm just so excited to be here. And before I get into it, I just want to thank all of you, my guests included, for having taken the time in your busy lives to come here and join us and support us in our ventures. As you know, today, as the world is more isolating than ever. It is, uncertainty is the certainty. Anxiety are the norms today. I think more and more we need each other. We need a community where we support each other and cheer for one another. So I'm really thankful for all of you to be here. I'm really excited for tonight's panel. It's been in the works for a little bit now, and all of a sudden it just came. So time flies, but I'm really, really happy and excited to introduce you to my beautiful panel today. But before I get to it, I wish I could see everyone, but maybe you can also use your chat box. Before we get into everything, I just want to give a couple of house rules. As you know, most of you right now are muted. That's amazing. We will have 1 hour altogether. Of course, if we, give and take a few minutes, that's okay. We will dedicate the last 10 to 15 minutes to addressing your questions and comments. And if they come along and if you feel like they are pertinent to the topic we are discussing at that moment, we'll address them at the time. So I will be the timekeeper, and I will be the administrator and the question and commentator. And then I just want you to all to just, be here open-minded. And my hope is that we all leave this webinar, feeling more excited, more joyful, more motivated, and just maybe, with some of the questions or doubts may be answered. So this is my goal for tonight. And without any further ado, not to lose any time, I would like to introduce you to all my guests. So first I'll start, and we'll be in alphabetical order, so no order of preference. So we'll start with Anna Maria. Hold on, sorry, more people are coming. So Anna Maria is all of them, first of all, are my friends, and I'm so excited to be sharing this platform with them. It makes me feel much more comfortable, and it makes me feel like I'm at home. So what better, right? So Anna Maria is my great friend. I love her. She is so talented. She's a journalist, TV anchor, writer, storyteller. I just want you all to read her stories, because I have very rarely read someone who, with her words and her prose, was able to take me through her journey just by reading them. It is a talent that I wish I had, but it's amazing. And so keep writing, Anna. So tonight she will be our moderator, since she's our in-house anchor and journalist. That's your expertise, which is definitely not mine. So I'm really happy to pass on the torch to you. Then I have my lovely ladies, Camilla and Roshi. So Camilla, Durari Fischbacher, as you can tell from the name, or maybe not.
No.
Anna Maria, sorry, she's American and now living in Switzerland. Camilla is half American, half Iranian, living in Switzerland. And as you know, I'm Iranian, 100%, living in Zurich. So she is an art director, fine art photographer, innovator, just like the super creative lady. And I cannot wait for you to just get to know her better. And Roshi Khalilian is also Persian, living in Zug. And she is a visual artist. She's a philosopher, a historian, an intellect, and she's just amazing. And you know what? All of them are so much fun. They're talented, they're kind, they're generous, and they're just fun, which, the perfect combination. So since I can see some of you, I would like a show of a hand. Tell me, is anyone here making money working with their craft? are they making money doing what they love? Anyone here, like by show of hand, or maybe you can just put it in your the chat. Okay, so a few. I can't see. Okay, I can't see all of you, but if maybe you can just go in the chat and then say yes or no. Let me see. Half half. Okay.
Half half. I feel you. Half half.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are half half, aspiring, right? Aspiring to get there. Andrea cannot hear anything. Is anyone else having a problem with not hearing me? Is everyone hearing us? So maybe do you want Andrea? Oof. Yeah, maybe her speaker, but she can't hear me. So
she muted.
Maybe no, but she yeah. So okay, sorry, we got sidetracked. Anyone else living their the love, the working, yeah, doing what they love? Okay, a few of us. So the topic tonight is really something that is dear to my heart, and yeah, and I think a lot of us can relate to it as whether we are creatives or not. But how can we make a living doing what we love? A lot of times, I mean, growing up in our society, I think we're told that, you know, go to school, get a good education, get a good job that will make you money, and then the rest will be your hobby or not, you know, if you're lucky enough to even have a hobby, you know, but just work hard so then you can just have a good life, right? So when we come along, and especially I think for in our background, the Persian background, I'm not sure about everyone else, but education is really high on top of our list. Not only education, but there are certain professions which are in high regards, and namely doctor, engineer, and lawyer.
And lawyer. But I think that's pretty universal.
Yeah,
I think it's
lawyer,
pretty universal.
yeah, I think the lawyer part is a new thing, right? But before that, it was either be a doctor or an engineer. So if you, right, would you agree with me? And if you break that mold somehow, it is not so cool, right? Especially for men. Maybe women are a little bit better because we are expected to maybe marry someone and then just being a housewife.
Yeah, marry a doctor.
So they're a little bit more diligent when it comes to women. But then if a woman chooses to not only follow that path, but also become a creative or use her love for arts, whatever that is, it could be painting, it could be photography, it could be, you know, being a journalist, a writer, an author. Okay, you do that, you keep it as a hobby, but you will definitely not be able to make money from it, right? So this is the overarching topic that I would like to discuss today, and how can we debunk that? Not to make it seem like it's all peachy and easy, and you know, and choose, you know, you can make a great living out of it, but you can or you cannot, right? Depending on how much how perseverant you are and how passionate you are about it, and how also lucky you are, right? So having said that, now we have the topic established, I will let my friend Anna take over and first maybe say a little bit about you and how this topic maybe can relate to you, and then, you know, and we can start asking questions.
Sounds good, Ariane. Thank you so much. You just always do wonders for my ego. So as she said, my name is Ana Maria. I'm US born, but I'm half Cuban and half Spanish. So I can totally relate to the doctor, lawyer, engineer scenario. And also to the fact that that wasn't expected of me, by the way. Those expectations were not for me. Those were for my brothers. I was to marry one of the above. Which didn't happen, by the way. I actually have my own career that I started as an intern. I started with CNN many years ago, and I kind of grew up there in the sense that I went from an intern to a production assistant to an editorial assistant to a correspondent to an anchor, and I worked mostly stateside. So I had a couple of years where I was in Madrid, and that was fun, massively. And then I came back to the US and I spent the last 15 years in LA, where I was working in the LA bureau there. And then I came to Switzerland 10 years ago because I married a Swiss. So long story short, here I am. And you too, guilty as charged. So 3 years ago, so I was home with my kids for a few years. I have two girls, and not really quite sure how I was going to get back on my feet, because when I left my job and I came here, my expectation was that I would never work on TV again, because this is the market, right? If you don't speak Swiss German or French or Italian to a, a journalistically proficient level, forget about it. And there were no outlets, no media really for English speakers, some print media, but nothing broadcast. So I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to have to reinvent myself anyway. So I kind of did that as a mom first, which was the hardest job I ever had. I just want to say parentheses. And then a little bit over 3 years ago, CNN Money Switzerland opened in Zurich. And I was able to go back to work, 15, maybe max 15 minutes from my house in the city. And it was really it was really unexpected and magical. And that was great. It was amazing. It was the best ticket I could have asked for to be able to go back to work, right? It was a thing because, I went from being a full-time mom to 2 small children. My youngest was 1.5 years, to jumping on the train of being a full-time employee back into journalism and TV, which is very demanding. So it was intense, but then unfortunately in August of this year, the company folded. It is ironic that CNN Money would go bankrupt, but yeah, it's a much longer story that Ariane was a bit privy to along the way. One of my guests on that trip, and now I'm kind of reestablishing myself. So when you asked, Ariane, are you doing something that you love? I have been able to, because I love, well, obviously I'm a talker, but I love communicating, and I love being on a stage and hosting and these kinds of things. It's just my happy place. And I've been able to do that. So in spite of the changes that happened so kind of quickly, the silver lining is I can be half and half. Some of the jobs that I do aren't as fun, but some of the other jobs are kind of make up for it. So that's me in a nutshell. I hope that didn't take too long. I'm going to throw it at you guys, at you ladies, actually, who are together, which is so fun. But Camilla, tell us a little bit about yourself and if you find yourself in your happy place.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm, as Ariane said, I'm half American, half Iranian. I've bounced all over the world, having to reinvent myself each and every time that I went to a new place. Let's say the last one before Switzerland was Japan, where this really connects immediately to sort of finding and working on your passion. So photography and fine art photography is something that I had always wanted to do, but I never really trusted myself to pursue. So again, talking about education, and I was sort of under the impression that one learned about art, but didn't necessarily do it. Wasn't particularly encouraged. So it was an interesting thing. Sort of my senior year, I insisted on taking a photography class. I'd been on the waiting list since freshman year, but because I wouldn't commit to a degree, because I was a classics major, and I was like, no, I don't, I just kind of like it. And again, just not accepting that this is something that would follow me, which it did. And throughout, also when I went to university later at Oxford, I carried on with my photography. So I was sort of half academic, half artist. And so when I lived in Japan, it was kind of taken out from under me, like you were talking about. I was a full-time mom of 3 kids. I was in a new country where I didn't speak the language, couldn't read anything, actually became illiterate, which was a very interesting experience.
Wow, that's hard.
Driving on the left-hand side of the road, so all of it was very challenging. So at one point, a friend of mine actually said, hey, I heard you like photography. Why don't we do a class together? And I remember with actual shame that I was like, look, I'm not a bored housewife doing a photography class. Like, I actually know what I'm doing. So I didn't want to join the class, snob as I was, which was a mistake, which I later found out, because I then went to the class. And then the teacher proceeded to insult all of the people that were there, saying, look, this isn't a class for bored housewives with big cameras who don't know what they're doing. And I perked up because I was like, well, I've got a Hasselblad and I know what I'm doing. So are you going to be a jerk and really teach me? And he was awesome. He put me through the works, and I came out with a deep understanding of photography in the studio and all that. And so that's something that accompanied me also when I came back to Switzerland together with my husband to be the creative director of our company. And that's a whole other long story and a very important facet of my my work-life balance. But what was interesting was that the photography and the creative side really have to work for me together, because in order to lead a creative team properly, I need to step back as an art director and direct. I can't be the actor, right? And so there's this balance. In order to really lead a creative team, you have to allow them to be their best. If you get in the middle of it, you're gonna squelch it, you know? And the reason why you've hired someone who can draw is because they can draw better than you. And you've hired someone who can do X, Y, Z is because they're better than you. That's why the team is better. So what was really important for me was to continue my photography, because I kept saying, I feel hollow. Like when I lead and I never get fed creatively, then I start trying to get in, and I didn't want to do that. So the photography for me has always been a balance and a thing that sort of feeds my creative drive. But what I found was really important too, was to take it to a next level where I was exhibiting and it was taken seriously. Because I think that's what Ariane was talking about, is this sort of arrogance that I was always told when I started my photography. Oh, so you think you're an artist now? Like, okay, you know, like, well, yeah.
Actually.
But it took me a while to say that, yeah. It took me actually a very long time.
Why?
I think because of judgment and my own self thing about you were talking. I read something you wrote. You look in the mirror and say, yeah, you're awesome. And yeah, some days I do and other days I don't. Other days I really let myself have it. And it's not very useful or a constructive thing to do. But I think it's an important thing to feed your passion, because then you know you are in the right place. Because everything else I did never fed that. And as long as I didn't feed that side of me or help it, develop it, I was always lacking the confidence, because I always felt that that's my true thing. And so when people would call it a hobby, I found that one of the most deeply wounding and insulting thing they could say to me, because I was like, it's not my hobby. It's my passion. It's what I stop eating and drinking when I take pictures, and I love eating and drinking. You know, I go for hours.
When do you think the difference is felt between going from hobby to an actual profession? What do you think people need for them to graduate you from being a professional hobbyist to an actual artist? You know, what do you think? Is it because if you start making money, then all of a sudden they take you seriously? Is that it?
Unfortunately, I think, yeah. Yeah, I think because of the society we live in, we monetize or capitalize everything. So it would include that as well. Yeah. So is that right? No. But is it the fact that I experience? Yes.
It is what it is.
But do you also have to make a mental switch though, don't you too? I mean, at some point you also have to say to yourself, this is bigger than a hobby for me. And that's the big, I can identify exactly with what you say, you know, sometimes you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am this and I am awesome. Sometimes you can't, or it's a bigger battle. But I think it's also that moment where you say, I take myself seriously.
Yeah.
No?
That absolutely, I had that turning point. I was together on a retreat with a group of dear friends of mine in a forum. Ariane, you were talking about finding your why and discovering it. And the person who was leading the group, she picked up on it, and she had me repeat the sentence, I am an artist and I know what I'm doing. And I said it quietly, and not with great conviction. She made me say it again. She made me say it again. And then when I finally said it really loud, I was so upset. I was bawling tears and crying. And it was like, I had no idea it was in there. She's like, say it again. I thought, what the hell? Leave me alone. Okay, I'm an artist. And then, and that's what it was. It was finally me acknowledging it. In the end, that's who you need. Everyone else is.
Yes, to that point. And Rashi, did you go through a similar experience? At what point did you say, you know, I am an artist?
Oh, she's right from the start.
Yeah.
Really? Do we have to hate her because she's so super confident? Oh, no, you know, I'm kidding. You know.
Well, I need, I think, a little bit of an opening to this. I needed, when I was much younger, I lived in Iran, let's say, and I left when I finished university, and I went to Dubai at the time because I wanted to go to Canada to join my cousins and study further, as was expected. But then I literally fell in love with Dubai and the lifestyle and the warmth. We talk about 93, 94. So it was not Dubai that we know today. Made a great circle of friends, got a fantastic job, and in a very short while I got a job with the government. So I had my afternoon free, where I was painting or doing mostly commission work or for myself, and I was doing actually classes there, like short-term schools on like different mediums, because I did a different education in Iran. But before getting there, actually, I went through the whole revolution and everything in Iran, and I was there, and I went to the university. I was expected to be a doctor, by the way, but to become a doctor, but I just could not stand hospitals, and I still don't. I hate the smell. And I always kept telling my dad, is like, you know, there's no way. I can look at blood, I can see it, so definitely I can save people. Is like, it's just not me, you know.
I would say you were right.
Yeah, you know, some people, they have passion for it, you know. It's a good means for them to save lives, because I can put these things together. I knew it that I can do it. I freeze when I see blood. I freeze literally. So for me, it was very important in my young age actually to find something that I am passionate about, and I was completely willing to keep it a secret from everyone else's. Meaning, not to blab about it and not to let's say forecast it or anything. So I finished, and I was at the university. I took literature, anyway, linguistic languages and all of that. But I have fallen in love with art. But I fell in love with art, not in the sense of that I wanted to become an artist at the age of about 14, 13. I was 13, actually. My aim, my desire, really, it was a desire, was not to become an artist. My desire was to understand one day that if I am looking at a piece of artwork, if I'm reading a piece of poetry, to understand how these things come together, or what the artist meant on the canvas. Okay, I love painting, that's who I am. But any kind of visual or verbal form of art, let's say, or any kind of art in general, that was my desire to basically start figuring that out about the world of the art and in general art. And then it didn't take long that I realized this is my passion. This is what I want. But I was told is like I'm taking painting classes, and what we do in Iran, I was studying at the same time at the university, but we do courses like 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. I had to leave after 6 years because I was leaving the country. But we work with the old masters, basically. And I had the privilege of having the two major names, two fantastic people. I'm grateful forever to them, really. They made me who I am today. And so I was working with them, and I always would have had from auntie or whatever, oh, so that is like just hobby thing that, you know, when you need to fill your time. I'm like, and I was actually like, you know what? Yeah, okay. You know, it's like there was no point of explaining that, you know, I want to become an artist, right? It was just, and I was like, you know, it doesn't matter what you think. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. So why don't I just satisfy them, give them the satisfaction of they believe what they think, and so on. So it's like, whatever. But
That's Roshi, whatever.
I feel ya.
yeah. So yeah, but that's, I was passionate, but as I say, you know, my goal was different. It's really, I was still just getting on. I wanted to understand every brush stroke on the canvas, the color scheme, that the color palettes that every different artist have used, and old master, really old masters, whatever. It's just that I wanted to understand, which it took me about 20 years to really understand this. After putting so many different sorts of educations, practice, dedication, commitment, like that, stay in passion. It's difficult with family life, children, moving countries, 4 countries at the same time, moving houses and all that. You still like, you find your escape, like a little opening there, and you're like, okay, I can go. And it's like you're doomed in front of the other's eyes. It's like, you could rest, like, no, I need to feed my soul, sort of. And then I come to the point that I kind of just have a little bit of spark of understanding of what is going on. I can communicate within the world of the art in a satisfying way for myself, not ultimately yet, because I know it's just the beginning and I can keep on forever learning this endless ocean of knowledge. But I reached, that was but the kind of a turning point for me. I found my salvation in art, in visual art for me, but it's just particularly who I am, because I need to feel and I need to mix colors. You know, for me, it's like, it's a different thing. I need to see what happens, and I like surprises, and I don't, that's who I am. But that really, for me, the turning point of starting making money or like building a business on it was, I found my salvation within this world, within this universe of creativity and art. I want to give it to the others as well. And is it in the form of the pieces I produce, and or of a teaching and making other people fall in love with art, you know, the way I fell in love with art. And therefore, now that we are here in Zug 10 years, the first year was tough. The kids were still small, and you know, school, coming home for lunch, and of course I don't have a job, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you know, which I actually took a step and I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to have a job. So then I have a very good excuse that, you know, I'm not staying home for this and that, and like everything is expected from me. And it's not, I'm not talking about the husband, it's like the society outside, friends, people are like, oh, you are home and your kids go for lunch to the Mittagstisch. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I need a break, for God's sake. If they like the food there, they're happy. As long as they're happy, I'm happy. So what's the big deal, you know?
That's funny.
So I went and I look around, and here it was easier in some senses, to actually get appointments for interview for the application that you send for a job, which I got 1 or 2, and then I agreed to go to the interview with the last one, basically, whatever trading company or so here. Not a huge office, and that's what I wanted, to have like fixed hours. This is me, mommy's working, Roshi's working, so it's like I have to have my independence back and everything. And I did, and I thought I was on the right track until the day I went to sit at the table to sign the contract, and the gentleman told me, oh, I'm gonna go grab a glass of water. I'm like, yes, please, thank you. And then I was sitting there and I'm looking at the wall, which is like about 5-6 meters away from me, and I'm like, oh my God, is that what I want to do? Like my entire life, sit from 9 to 6 in the office, do other people's stuff, sort of, after what I have gone through, you know? It was the turning point. He came back with a glass of water and stood up, and I said, I am really, really sorry, I need to leave. And
that's like a turning point.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, why? I said, nothing. I just very personal, completely personal, very nice, and they was perfectly fine, of course. Then I came and I said, that's it. I was painting already. I have like a downstairs room. I was painting. I was doing small shows and whatsoever. I hired a room from another artist at the time to have classes. I had a very small classes, but it was not my space. It was not my setup. And I'm very particular, she knows, so about certain things. And so it was okay, but it was not satisfying. Then I took a big risk and I rented my first studio here. No money. I had
proud of her.
no idea how I was going to pay the rent. We know I might sell art, I might not sell art. I might sell one month many and maybe 6 months nothing. You know, you can't count on making basically like a very particular, especially when you have rent and costs and everything. And I was told, how are you going to do this? I said, I don't know. I'll figure out. What's going to happen? The worst thing, I won't pay the rent. They kick me out. What's going to happen? It's like, what can happen?
Yeah. But I think that's so
Swiss way of looking at things.
yeah. Yes, that is a bit non-Swiss. But I think you've touched on so many important things, but just now, this kind of not focusing on the worst case scenario. I mean, really thinking, what is the worst case scenario? What's the worst that could happen? I mean, Ariane and I used to talk about this when I started telling her the company wasn't doing well. And she was like, why are you worried? What's the worst thing that could happen? That you lose your job, you're in a country that will support you. There's an unemployment like we don't have in the US. If you're in the US, you'd be in trouble and other places. What is the worst that can happen? And it really brings you back down to earth, right? It really kind of centers you and you're like,
I think, when you think about the worst case, usually it's death, right? Usually that would be the worst.
Well, yes.
Worst case, if that happens, then it's too late for, to even worry about it anymore. And most of the time, that's not going to happen. So usually the worst thing that can happen is, yes, struggling for a little bit. But if we're lucky enough to have friends or families that can help us and support us in the meantime, I think the worst is really not the worst, right? In our situation. And but mostly I think it's about ego, it's about the fear of failure, of being inadequate and all of that. I think that these are the things that weigh on us way more than the actual fear of not having a job or not having the money.
Sorry, I have to say something here. I think it's the problem is in most of the cases with the worst case scenario is that we actually don't know what the case is to know what is the worst case of the scenario. Do you know what I mean? Because we go with this conventional borderlines and whatever framework of this is the way things functions. And we are always within that little limited, boring box. It's like, what do you think? It's good and bad. There is no middle line, or like there is no other form, or there is no other shape, or there is no other possibilities, even possibly, most of the time we think we know, but we really are not completely knowledge about the case itself to know what's the worst case of it, basically.
Well, we base it on our limited knowledge, like you were saying. And the thing is, you don't know what you don't know. So in order to be able to frame that, we just use all the influences from other people, our own experiences, and we put it all together and we're like, okay, so this is what's going to happen. But in reality, we don't know until you get to that point. You just don't know what you don't know. But it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of guts, to be able to think that way and be able not to abide by the rules of society, and the rules of other people around us who, I think most part, they love us and they worry about us. It's really about protecting us. It's not because they mean wrong, but they just want us to be safe. But, the approach of it, and then you just live a small life, which is fine if that's what you want. But I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to break away from that and just try to fly with your own wings and see where those that flight will take you. I think it's amazing to do that.
And something that I heard from the both of you that I also really liked is that, and I can also identify with, is that no matter what you were doing, you recognized that creative itch, and you knew you had to fulfill that somehow. Maybe it wasn't the full-time thing at the time. Maybe at the time it was just a hobby. you know, just something you were doing a little bit while you had your family and all of the other priorities, but you are always like, oh, I got to scratch that. And especially in your case, Camilla, that you recognized that in your team you would hire, first of all, kudos for being a good manager and recognizing that you hire people that know more than you. But also the sense that you're like, you knew your limits. You knew that if you didn't scratch that itch, you were going to start, you know, jumping in where you weren't, where you didn't belong, so to speak, you know, and maybe making trouble. So I think that's, just wanted to point out, I think that's really important. That's very, very admirable.
But I mean, how, yeah, I mean, do you think many people here, I mean, figure out what that itch is, you know? So it's also, that's also a privilege to be aware of that, I think, because a lot of us go through life without even having found our voice. Who are we? What is my voice? How does it sound? Like, what do I want to come out of this, you know, this body of mine, you know, this engine that I have? And I think a lot of us spend a long time, a whole life trying to find that voice and be so comfortable with it that we can actually speak it, right? So I think, yeah, to what you were saying, Ana Maria, that's really a privilege, and that's just such an amazing thing that both of you, all three of you actually, you know, have found, you know. And I was telling Ana Maria earlier that the thing is also, in general, I want to point out that, you know, you take one skill, but you don't need to apply it to one area, you know. So like, say with you, Ana Maria, you know, you can write, or you're good on camera. These are transferable skills that you can use any place. Being an art director, being a teacher, Roshi, being, you know, that those you can use everywhere. You don't need to confine them within one box of, you're an artist and that's what you do. And that's all you know. And so I think a lot of people have to also realize whatever it is they can use. If you're a writer, you want to paint, but you need to make money. How about you find a way to find a company that could use an illustrator? I don't know, something, you know, or copywriter, so you can, you know, satisfy that itch a little bit while making some money, while doing other things. I think, you know, it's really important to reframe things and look a little bit outside of the box, and know that the possibilities are just endless. Right?
To get out of the comfort zone and start looking for something which they look and sound uncomfortable at first, because those are the things which are going to give you the edge, a good drive, a good force of a drive to get on with things which actually satisfy other things rather than whatever is expected from the outside society. Let's say your soul, your self, your existence, and that kind. And this comfort zone is a very, very dangerous zone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very dangerous. Yeah. You can stay there forever, and there's no satisfaction. There's no heartbeat. Like, you know, it's just comfortable.
Well, you're just miserably comfortable, as you
miserably comfortable. Exactly. Yeah, that's that's true. Yeah.
My other husband, you know, always says, you know, just you're comfortable, so then it feels good in some ways because you feel secure, but you're miserable because you don't have that edge. Yeah. Only while you step outside of that edge, outside of that circle, will you feel alive, even though it scares you. But once you're able to overcome that fear and win a little bit at it, that's when you feel like, oh my God, okay, I want more. You get that hunger for more. But you have to first, like for me being here right now, it's way outside of my comfort zone.
Good for you.
No,
Good
but
for
you know,
hard. It's very hard.
It's very hard, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
What's really important is in whatever it is that you do, you can be cooking a really beautiful dinner. You should do something. With each person, it's different. But I know for me that when I manage to take a photo exactly the way I see it, where it gets stuck in my head, I see pictures and I know exactly, and then sometimes it doesn't work. But if I keep going and I get it, once I get it, the satisfaction is beyond anything else. So
Cool.
that makes every coziness and mediocrity just not worth it. Because once you have that, you're like, oh, and then you just got to go back for it again. My personal fear is every time I have it, I always think, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this again, because I can't that moment. And I'm like, just shut up, just enjoy it. Exactly. Just enjoy it, because anything like that will go away. So enjoy it, and then build it for the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, nothing lasts forever, but then you find new ones anyway.
Yeah. Have you ever frozen by fear? And if so, how did you get yourself out of it? I know, for all
For
three,
me, or
all of you, all three of you.
yeah, no, I definitely was. And for a while, especially when I came back from Japan and I was in Switzerland, I really immersed myself into my job because it was extremely challenging for years, at least about 4 or 5 years. And then I had sort of a panic, like I was talking about, that I'd never be able to be at that level. And I knew that I would never accept any other level. So it was very, very frightening. And then I read this book, an amazing book by Sally Mann. She's a photographer, and it's called Hold Still. And I just found it fascinating in the book how she explains how she works at her craft, works at it. Because talent only gets you so far.
Yeah.
And then the other part is just work.
Just
and
work.
It's arrogant. And you were the other person who gave me a kick in the bum too, who said, listen, how do you think that you're going to get to the next level if you never give it any time? And she really let me have it, because it was saying, like, it's almost, how dare you? Like, how dare you think that you should be exhibiting when you're not even putting the time in?
I didn't say that.
She didn't, but she said it in a personal way. But she's so right. So that was it. That block was for me to then stop worrying about making a masterpiece in my head. Go and just shoot or paint. Just do it. Just do it. Work at your craft or write. No, you're not going to write an incredible novel if you never write. You got to do it. And that's what that and I realized that the first sessions of photos weren't good enough, but they weren't good enough for this woman, Sally Mann, who I admire and I think was one of the best photographers. She'd just go back and do it again. Mm-hmm. And I never go back and do it again. I'm just like, if it's not good, it's not good. It's because I'm not good enough. I can't work at it. And that was that turning point where I realized, no, it's like anything else. You want a good body? Exercise. You can't just sit on the couch and say, I really want a great body. I mean, maybe some people can.
The unicorns of this world.
The unicorns. So,
I think in the creative world, this is really, really, really important. But this is the hardest part, is to truly understand, really, that it is not about the final destination. It's about the journey. But truly understand, a lot of people, they say that they understand it, but they don't. If you give up in the middle, then they don't. Then you don't. It's hard. It needs a lot of emotional dedication, actually, right on top of everything else's, time and commitment, discipline, rituals, and so on. Respect. Oh yeah.
For your own
time. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's what Camilla was just mentioning, and we had actually been talking about this the last couple of days as well, over and over and over. The most exciting thing, actually, is this being result oriented as an artist. I always tell that to my children that I teach, or grown-ups, or when I do the workshops for the company, forget about the result, because you will not take a step forward if you keep constantly, and we all being in this virtual perfectionism world of the, whatever we call it, social media or whatsoever, which they all use 500 different kind of filters to put out what they put out, and we think that happens naturally, which it does not happen naturally. Is like, okay, people just drop it, drop that final picture. Stop being a result-oriented person. It's all about the journey. And if you allow that, a lot of phenomena really can happen within the process. But you got to first make peace with that and truly believe in it, and then go with it. And that's it's hard, but and then you have to keep doing the same thing you were saying. Yeah. You can just sit and expect having big muscle. Well, you can't.
most people can't. So about the journey, actually do the work. I think, Ariane, I don't know what you think, but maybe it's time to open it up for questions.
I think I read something, it was Einstein or something, is like, he says something very short: you cannot expect a fish to fly. Well, we have fish that fly, but we talk about, so it was just something which actually, the naysayers, or there are people, they actually are not able, this roughness and toughness, and keep going, courage, you can expect everyone to be encouraged. You know, you have to have this compassion in your heart, understanding. I cannot, everyone is carrying some sort of a baggage in their life. Some are heavier and some are a bit lighter. The heavier one it's difficult to get on alone. So what I would say is, it's okay, go get help. There's nothing wrong for asking for help. Someone on a professional level, or like friend, I don't know, mental health, physical health, as someone which makes the criteria or the circumstances easier or on towards the more possible way. Because I think a lot of people now, with this whole being a superpower and the sort of like, you can do it, we can do it, and this empowering, and I'm going to empower, and all of that, it's beautiful, nothing against it. But then you think that the normal people, when they hear or they look at it, everybody thinks that they should be like that too. And
That's a lot of pressure too.
It's not fair, because a lot of people never had the privilege of even understanding the word courage. Let's put it this way. And I think you do really need to have some sort of a compassionate force towards these kind of people, and say, but that's okay. But there are ways. That's why you have creative coaches, like, you know, people that you can trust in a way that they can give you good hints and helps and support and advices out of as well personal experiences, you know. So asking for help, I think, is a very good idea.
Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Where are you?
I'm in Zurich. I'm Canadian.
Okay.
Canadian and Swiss. I am transitioning careers from one where I made good money and did for a long time and know what I'm doing, to one that's very new, and I'm not making very much money, but I love it.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
Does anyone have tips how to deal with the Swiss husband that really only sees straight ahead and doesn't get this other stuff? That, no offense, Alexandra, wherever you are. That
Husband's online, so I'm not saying anything.
Whose husband is that? Yours?
Oh, he's not like that.
That's amazing.
I'll private message you, know, but I struggle trying to, because I'm also working on myself and trying my self-belief, and then to try explain it to someone that he's like, oh, I believe in you, but you have to make some money right away. And I'm like, yeah, you know, like, any tips? Husbands, close your ears.
The best way is to respect their opinion or thoughts, but please do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I am. It makes it more difficult.
Yeah, but it's nothing, it is not an unfamiliar thing. What you're saying, it completely makes sense. Yes. Let's just not get into details, right?
but as we said, the worst scenario is death. So no one's dying.
Yeah.
So the worst thing that happen, I mean, in this case, no one's dying. So the worst thing, we're very dramatic Iranians. We have to take it right to the
yes.
I know. I love you so much I could eat your liver. I learned that from Ariane. I love it.
I love you so much.
We're a little intense.
Little.
So, you know, maybe put it up a notch and just feel like, look, no one's time. You
Yeah.
haven't starved yet. Therefore, maybe come up with a plan or a
You need a
thing,
plan.
or
It works.
together.
Is this a creative endeavor, Anne, or is it?
Yes, and well, yeah, it's more creative. I mean, I'm doing dental hygiene, which is not creative whatsoever.
Okay.
And I'm going into interior design, or I am doing interior design, but
Okay.
again, it's very, very new, completely different, and scary as shit.
I think that I will just say this. I'm also married to a Swiss, so.
And I love him to bits. He's
I
so
do.
lovely.
Yes.
You know.
Me too. But I think, like with many things that I've found here in Switzerland across the board, Swiss, they're a bit risk adverse.
Yeah.
So they want to know that things work.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, yeah, they need to be, and this is my experience, personal experience, is you really got to sell them hard off the top.
Okay.
And but what I found worked for me was really sitting down with my husband and saying, look, I need this. You know, this is important to me. I know that I'm not making money right now, and I have to make those choices quite often now because I'm not in a full-time position. Now I'm freelancing. So the question comes up for me, well, shouldn't you be like are they paying you for that? First, are they paying you for that? And then second of all, you know, shouldn't you be working on your website? I'm like, I'm ready to like throw them out the window with the website.
Yeah.
But you know, the point is I have to keep telling him I need this. I need to scratch that itch, because if I don't do it, I'm going to be miserable to be around.
Reach to the point that I actually don't have a point, or I have to start a new thing, or then if it doesn't drive me mad, that means I'm not curious enough. So what I need, I will feed myself with the new knowledge that I'm a little bit like more, let's say, alien about it, or something completely new generally, to create really this go up, like to have it starting having sort of a volcano of the curiosity. And then the moment comes, I think, no, then you know, it just takes you somewhere. But it's not happening by coincidence, to be very honest, right? This is all preparations that we have talked about that as well. Like you have in your subconscious, and you know, you work on it in your thoughts, in your minds. It's not out there. You're not writing about it. You're not painting about it. You're not, you know, making a sujet, or you're not making a series of artwork or whatsoever that you're doing, but they're there. And then when you reach to this peak with this curiosity, like I'm dying, something has to happen. And if you give yourself a moment, somehow there's a beautiful bundle of energy, you know, coming together like a chain, and then something comes. So let things happen naturally. And
yeah, I mean,
really
at least for me, I don't produce that much work in a chunk. So I kind of go nuts for a while and producing because I have a really strong idea. And then I almost need to like get it out of my system and let it sit for a while. And then what can sometimes be a trap for me is that I then don't move on and take it to the next level. So as a photographer, things are half done. It would be as if Roshi just kept starting new paintings and never finished it. Well, for me, I've half finished it by taking it, the photo. It's this capturing, it's this hunting, it's this, I've done it. But then, especially once I've developed it and I look at it and I go, oh, I got it, haha. But to then the work, now for me, this is when the work comes. Now it's the discipline to then look at the pieces, edit them, get rid of it, make it a show, do the process. So as Cameron is asking, is part of it is completing it, finishing it. I had to discipline myself to not just keep hopping to the next subject. I don't have a problem coming up with ideas. I have a problem finishing, completing it, and not already getting excited by the next thing. So I have to take, when I finish the project, I need to finish it and not start a new one. If I start a new one, I get bored with my other one. Even though I haven't even done anything with it, I get bored.
Or
it's done.
You're just more excited with the new one.
Well, it's already finished. I did it already. It's for me. I haven't shown it to anyone, but I've seen it. So it's all good, you know, but not really. But yeah. So there's that seduction of the new, the excitement of the new. So I really then just don't let myself put the camera in my hand until I, you know.
That's a discipline.
Yeah. But as you said, it's still got to be the thing that gives you a zing. And sometimes they don't, and you just need to leave it. And then, you know.
Just feed it.
Go back.
With more question marks. It's miserable feeling, to be very honest. It's not very happy thing. Fun. It's like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? But it's good. And then it's like, you reach the point, it's like, okay. And then something comes, you just start bumping stuff together. And I think that's what the creativity means, right? You make sense of things which they don't make sense.
If they stand something new.
If they stand on their own, you just put them together, you start making sense of it for yourself, or you basically refashion whatever is already existing, create something new which didn't exist before. So it's not magic, it's just how to put them together, right? So
how about you, Anna? Where do you get your inspiration?
What inspires me? I'm quite inspired by, I guess this is also the journalism training, storytelling is, I'm inspired by the day. You know, by what's around me, I quite an observer, and I'm very interested in people. And of course I start with what's happening around me in terms of news. What are people talking about? You know, what do people care about? And that kind of starts, like you said, kind of sits in the back of my head and kind of sits with me. And if it's an idea that persists throughout the day, then I'm like, maybe this is where I have to go with this. Or even when I start writing something, I put down the first idea. And then if it stays with me, in spite of all the changes that I will subsequently always make, if that, I always go back to, I go back to it, then I'm like, okay, then that's really what grabbed me for whatever reason. But I'm very quite in the moment.
You guys, earlier you said that if you're passionate about art, you should work as an illustrator, or if you're passionate about writing, work as a copywriter. And I have a sort of counter question to that. Wouldn't it make more sense to perhaps not like sell out the talent, but to keep it as a passion and work in something else? Because I don't know if that would go for everyone, but for me personally, I think that if I would, because I'm a musician, but if I were to write jingles, it would completely sap all my creativity, and then I'd come home and not be able to write any music.
Oh, wow. That is very poignant.
Yeah, it's very, very deep. And absolutely.
My daughter.
Yeah,
Apple does not fall far from the tree.
you know, to your point, absolutely. You know, it depends on your comfort zone and what it is that you want, right? So if you're very passionate and adamant about where your boundaries are and where you stand, I really highly recommend that you protect those and you stay true to yourself. However, not everybody is able or willing to live fully their passion yet, maybe in the beginning. Maybe they have to survive. Maybe they have no means of financial support coming. So my point is that you may not be able to succeed yet as a musician, right? Or as doing what you want to do yet. How about using that skill somewhere else where you don't do something completely different, or irrelevant, or something that you hate? Where you can still do a little bit of creativity and then make money out of it while you can do other things. I always say, like, maybe we could look at it as a sponsor of your dreams, right? So it's sort of like it pays for your education, so then you can do what you love, right? But it's really it's a personal thing, and everybody has to know where the boundaries are, how far they're willing to go, how far they're willing to stretch themselves, and what it means to them. If it really feels like you're selling your soul, then definitely don't go there. Because you will not do a good job. You will not do a service to yourself or to the person hiring you. It's unfair to everyone involved, right? But I think that life is not black or white, or I'm just going to choose this camp or just this camp. Has many shades of gray. And I think that maybe comes with age, and as you get older and then you have more experiences and maybe more failures and maybe more setbacks, and you learn a little bit to be elastic, right? It's really about reframing the situation and looking at it from a different perspective. But you have to feel it in your heart, and you have to have those boundaries for yourself, just like being open to whatever life has to bring you, while you respect yourself, and sometimes we may have to do things that may not feel so right at the moment, but maybe for the bigger good or for the bigger picture, so it's like using like cobblestones like a stepping stone, right? Instead of looking at it as an obstacle, you look at it as a stepping stone to something else. I hope it answered your question.
I'm not having plans, I think.
What's that?
I mean, I think an important thing as well is if it's that important to you, that it's that itch, then it needs to be made a priority. It just depends. It's not the same degree for everyone. So whoever at that level is then happy with illustrating. But if that's what, as you said, sells your soul, then by all means, do not do that.
Yeah, I agree.
And as you said, you can have a day job. I did that for years. And in fact, my job as a creative director is in that way the job that makes me money, so that I can do my passion, which is my photography. Because if I have to live off my photography, then it would be very difficult. But to find a balance, and as you rightly say, Ariane, it's not black and white. There's so many ways of us to somehow create a life worth living in variations, and everyone has their own version. You just need to listen to yourself to figure out what it is that makes you happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Favorite way to be without fear.